Item 4. The Intramural League basketball playoffs continued last night, narrowing the field of play down to 4 teams. And one of the top games of the night, the undefeated Boss Ballers squared off against the VAQ134 Garudas. The Garudas took the tip and they ran with it. They managed to go on a 9-2 run before the Ballers called a timeout to regroup. With less than 10 minutes to play in the first half, the Ballers finally woke up and they were able to pull back within 1 point. As the second half of play continued, the Ballers battled hard for the advantage before establishing a solid 4-point lead in the closing minutes. And it was those 4 points that made the difference. The Boss Ballers beat out VAQ134 by a score of 43-39. Welcome to another edition of FEN Sports. I'm Marine Corporal Adam's play of persistence. The Garudas of VAQ134 were looking to upend the Boom offense. In the early going, there weren't too many surprises. Boom got the ball, Boom scored, etc., etc. However, the Boom defense got sloppy, and the Garudas came alive in a big way. In a surprise turnabout, it was Boom who was on the run late in the first, with the Garudas charging ahead by 5 points in the second half. As the final act of this play came to an end, it appeared that things would go right down to the wire, and they did. The Garudas found themselves down by 1 point with 3 seconds remaining on the clock, but they had the ball, and as the buzzer sounded, the Garudas nailed their final shot to win in an upset over Boom. The Garudas take this one 51-50. And welcome to another edition of FEN Sports. I'm Petty Officer Chris Runyon. The Unit Olympics continued last night with the medal rounds of the six-man gold medal game. You know, I have always wanted to say that. Anyway, in the gold medal game, VAQ134 was taking on MWSS 171. This is pretty much the same 171 team that took second place in this year's volleyball league. But the Garudas weren't here then, and this matchup was a great one. 134 and 171 fought their way into a decisive third game, with 134 taking the first one and 171 taking the second one convincingly. In the third set, everything counted as a point, even side outs. And the Garudas took advantage of that, going up 14-9, but 171 wasn't done, bringing the score to 14-13. However, the Garudas won it on what would have been just a side out in a normal game to take the gold and hand 171 the silver. Congratulations goes out to both teams. Taking a look at the medal standings as of Monday in sports. I'm Petty Officer Chris Runyon. The flag football season kicked off last night with a pair of games. Starting out with the Garudas from VAQ134 taking on the Tasmanian Devils. Now, I promised the Devils that I wouldn't be mean, but guys, you really might want to think about changing your names. I mean, really. The Tasmanian Devils, come on. But the Devils, however, were able to score once. But in direct contrast, the Garudas were also able to score a couple times. Like 7. You know, I don't think it's that the Devils are that bad. I think it might be that the Garudas are that good. It's also only the first game of the season, and for the Devils, think about it. It just can't get any worse than that, okay? Welcome to another edition of FEN Sports. I'm Petty Officer Chris Runyon. Flag football season also continues last night. Starting out with the Dragons from CSSD 36, taking on the immensely talented Garudas from VAQ134. The Dragons had an extra secret weapon in this game in the form of Freddie Jones. You may remember Jones as the quarterback of the H&HS team during the Fall Kickoff Classic. Well, Jones is just what this CSSD 36 team needed. The Dragons were already a very good team with a good quarterback and exceptional receivers, but with Jones in the lineup, these guys are untouchable. The Garudas, who before yesterday were the untouchable team, didn't know what hit them as the Dragons rack up an impressive 52-26 win over the Garudas. But just as a consolation for the Garudas, Jones goes TAD next week. FEN Sports, I'm Petty Officer Chris Runyon. The flag football playoffs continued last night with 3 games. In the premier matchup of the night, the Garudas of VAQ134 were taking on the Lost Boys of MWSS 171. Both teams remained in the winner's bracket after earlier wins. The Garudas struck first, but were unable to convert on the 2-point conversion. And the Lost Boys took advantage of that, marching down the field to tie the score up and then take the lead on this 2-point conversion. But the Garudas weren't about to take the long road to the finals, and Warren Quinn just took over the game. With this touchdown run, Quinn and the Garudas take back the lead and never look back, taking the game 26-8. The Garudas next take on Chang'an tonight in the much-anticipated rematch. On this or other local sporting events, call the Athletics office at 253-4605. Welcome to another edition of FEN Sports. I'm Petty Officer Chris Runyon. The flag football playoffs continued last night with the semifinals. In the premier matchup of the night, the undefeated and really uncontested PMO Chain Gang was taking on the Garudas from VAQ134. The Garudas and Chain Gang had some bad blood between them, and it carried over into this game. Chain Gang was able to strike first, but missed the conversion. On the Garudas' first possession, they had one great reception, but that was it. The Garudas had to kick. And Chain Gang was able to make them pay. On this 4th and long from the goal, Thomas Blackburn was able to zing this pass in for 6 and give Chain Gang a 12-0 lead. They were unable to convert again, so the lead stayed at 12-0. On the Garudas' next possession, this Warren Quinn pass was picked off by Terrell Dickerson. But the Garuda defense didn't waver and held Chain Gang in check. That gave the Garudas something to work with as Quinn just marched his team down the field for a touchdown, and the 2-point conversion was good to cut the lead to 12-8. With less than 2 minutes to go, Chain Gang got the ball back, and Thomas Blackburn threw a perfect pass for another 6 to make the lead 18-8. But there was just too much time on the clock for the Garudas, 18 seconds to be exact. And Quinn answered his counterpart with an excellent little bomb of his own. They were able to convert on the 2-point conversion and make the score at halftime 18-16 Chain Gang. The second half was all Garudas, as they were able to reel off 2 more touchdowns as the Garudas defense took care of the rest. The usually potent Chain Gang offense sputtered under the Garuda pressure and were never able to get back into the game as the Garudas hand Chain Gang their first loss of the season, 34-16, and move on to the finals. Welcome to another edition of FEN Sports. I'm Petty Officer Chris Runyon. The flag football season concluded last night with the championship game. The title game pitted the Garudas from VAQ134 taking on the PMO Chain Gang. The Garudas were coming out of the winner's bracket and had beaten Chain Gang pretty handily the night before. But Chain Gang was the regular season champions, and they fell to their first defeat of the season to these Garudas. If Chain Gang was to take the game, they would have to beat these Garudas twice. It's hard enough to beat them once. On paper, this is the kind of scenario that great games come from. And this was definitely one of them. The Garudas struck first, as a matter of fact, on the first play of the game, on this interception return for the touchdown. And were able to pretty much dominate the game in the first half, taking a 24-12 lead into the halftime break. But the second half was a different story altogether. Both teams were able to score, but one of the key plays of the game was on a 3rd down inside the Chain Gang 10-yard line. The Garudas, with a comfortable 6-point lead, get picked off by Jaleel Ali, and Chain Gang has life again. That would be all that Thomas Blackburn would need. He drove his team down and was able to squeak in for the touchdown to tie the score up at 32. And then the attempt for the extra point was good to give Chain Gang the lead. The Garudas had one last chance, but the Chain Gang defense kept the Garudas in check as Chain Gang takes the game 33-32 and forces a second and deciding game. The second game started out a little differently than the first. The cold wind made numb hands a factor, but Chain Gang was still able to score a couple times like this Blackburn TD. Chain Gang had the lead at halftime, 12-0. But back came the Garudas, led by their tremendously talented quarterback Warren Quinn, were able to come back and take the lead 14-12. That set up yet another PMO comeback. With 4th down on the Garuda 9-yard line, Blackburn was somehow able to find an open receiver, and with their great second effort was able to sneak in for the touchdown to give Chain Gang the lead 18-14. But there was still 1:34 left on the clock, plenty of time for Q and company. The Garudas were able to get the ball to the Chain Gang 3-yard line with only 20 seconds to go. And watch this play. Q with the ball, makes a lunge for the goal, but doesn't make it. And Chain Gang takes the title over an immensely talented Garudas team 18-16. Just as a note, never have I seen more talent, heart, and determination in intramural sports as I did with these two teams. Congratulations goes out to both teams. That's all the local sports for now, but to catch the latest in college and professional sports, call FEN Iwakuni's information and sports line at 253-5400. I'm your Iwakuni Sports Authority Petty Officer Chris Runyon, FEN Sports.